While public health officials continue to urge Texans to get vaccinated against COVID-19, it's unclear how many elected officials have opted for the shot. Our investigators surveyed your state lawmakers, and as Avery Travis reports, many of the legislators working on public health issues are not going public with their personal vaccine status.
They were all just like disappearing like one after the other.
I got very frustrated.
I don't understand the thought process.
For months, we've covered the difficulties Texans faced trying to get appointments for the vaccine. But heading into the month of May, Texas reached a milestone. More than half the population has received at least one dose.
Because there's so much available, there really is no barrier and there's no excuses.
Still, state data shows the majority of Texas counties are sitting at 40% of their populations fully vaccinated or less. And polling from the Texas Politics Project at UT shows 28% of Texans have no plans of getting the COVID-19 vaccine.
So we wanted to know what the numbers look like inside the walls of the Capitol, particularly from lawmakers who are making key health-related decisions. That's lawmakers sitting on the House Human Services Committee, the House Public Health Committee, and the Senate Committee on Health and Human Services.
Of the nearly 30 lawmakers we contacted, only half got back to us to let us know they had received the vaccine by the time of this report.
A lot of them are leading by example.
Some have gone public, taking their shot to social media. Governor Greg Abbott got his on camera.
And to show the public that vaccines are important, that they're not a big deal.
It's not a new concept, says political strategist Ray Sullivan. During his time working in former Governor Rick Perry's office, he organized several public flu vaccine events. Once during the H1N1 scare. And oftentimes, the former governor's wife, a nurse by trade, would administer Perry's shot in front of a crowd. But when it came to our questions for lawmakers about the coronavirus vaccine, a spokesperson for one Republican senator from West Texas, Charles Perry, told us he'd opted not to comment on our report. We got a similar response from the office of Tony Rose, a Democrat from Dallas. After 3 emailed requests and several phone calls to each office, a dozen lawmakers on these health-related committees and their staff never got back to us.
You know, we've seen in recent years, everything has become seemingly more political and more divisive. So it doesn't surprise me that members on either side of the aisle want to keep those decisions private.
2 of the lawmakers who we never heard from, Senator Lois Kolkhorst and Representative Stephanie Klick, they sit on the expert vaccine allocation panel. That's the group deciding who's eligible for the vaccine and when, and how many doses providers get each week.
Austin, Texas is the epicenter of the anti-vaccine movement in America.
2 months ago, infectious disease expert Peter Hotez predicted distribution decisions and supply problems would soon become less of a barrier. He was already worried about how misinformation, or even just hesitancy around this vaccine, would affect a return to normal. But ultimately,
Texas has a part-time legislature. These are folks who come here and work for 140 days every other year and then go back and have normal jobs and normal lives. And just like everybody, it is up to them on how private and public they want to be about their vaccines.
Avery Travis for State of Texas.
To explore the full list of which lawmakers are going public with their decision to get vaccinated and which aren't, head online to this station's website and look for this story in the Texas Politics section. We'll continue to update this list if legislators decide to share their vaccine status, plus you can see which of their districts have the highest and lowest vaccine rates. Political beliefs seem to play a role in how Texas voters view the vaccines. A poll last month by the Texas Politics Project and the Texas Tribune asked voters whether they would try to get a COVID vaccine as soon as it became available. 72% of Democrats in the poll said they already had received the vaccine, but less than half of Republicans said they had been vaccinated. There's also a divide when it comes to Texans who say they're not trying to get the vaccine. More than a third of Republicans polled said they don't plan to get vaccinated, compared to just 8% of Democrats. For insight on all of this, we're joined by Dr. Gerald Parker. He's the director of the Pandemic and Biosecurity Policy Program at the Bush School of Government at Texas A&M. Welcome, Dr. Parker.
Thank you.
So the CDC lifted its mask and distancing recommendations for people who have been fully vaccinated, but a lot of Texans are choosing not to get vaccinated. How big is the risk for them and for the rest of us?
Well, also the flip side of that coin, there's a lot of people that are being vaccinated too in Texas. And, in fact, one of the good stories I think in Texas is that we have almost 80% of those who are 65 and older, the most vulnerable, have received at least one dose. And I think that's contributing to a lot of the decrease in severity and deaths that we see in Texas and actually across the United States. But I think all of us we're kind of in a situation now where there is going to be some confusion. I think most of us are glad that the CDC lifted the guidance on the mask, but remember, CDC is just guidance, and so local communities, state governments, and even businesses and institutions of school are still evaluating that and making decisions within their own communities about what to do. But I think we're going to see a gradual lifting of that mask mandate, and then that's going to put a lot of responsibility on us, where it should be. Personal responsibility is an important aspect of this in our daily lives for anything, and we have to learn how to manage risk and what's comfortable for us and so forth.
For folks who do get vaccinated, how much protection do they have and how long does it last?
Well, so far, as far as efficacy, the vaccine has exceeded everybody's expectations regarding efficacy. Now, the Pfizer, the Moderna, the J&J that are already out in use in the United States, I mean, what was observed in clinical trials was just extraordinary, upwards of 90% effectiveness from preventing infections and even more effective against preventing severe disease and hospitalizations and deaths. So it's extraordinarily effective against the severe disease and death. But not every vaccine is, none of them are going to be 100% effective. So we still have to be careful even when we're vaccinated, but it does provide a great deal of protection against severe disease.
Well, we've seen some big events recently in Texas. 70,000 people packed AT&T Stadium for a boxing match last weekend. Baseball season's underway, football season's coming. Is it safe to go to these big events, or are there precautions people need to take?
Well, again, I think everybody needs, make some of their own kind of risk-benefit analysis about whether they attend or not attend, and each of us have a different risk tolerance. But I think it's, the data shows that particularly outdoor settings, the risk is very minimal in outdoor settings. Indoor settings, I think, again, we're just going to have each person needs to make a risk calculation based on their tolerance. And as we move forward, over the next several weeks and months, I think it'll be easier for us to make those risk tolerance decisions as we learn more.
What have we learned from all of this? Are there things that we should be doing now to prepare for or prevent future pandemics?
Well, we're going to have to take stock of everything that's happened. Why did SARS-CoV-2 emerge in the first place? Why weren't we more prepared to respond earlier? What about how do we implement all the non-pharmaceutical interventions? Were they done timely? Were they do too much? So there's a lot of what I call lessons observed that we're going to have to take stock of these lessons observed so that we can turn those observations into real long-lasting lessons learned. Because this will not be our last pandemic or major epidemic, and we have to be better prepared in the future.
All right, Dr. Gerald Parker, thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome.
He's remembered as an influential political advisor and a PR pioneer.
Julian had the physical stature of John Wayne. He was tall and big and Texan, but he had the heart and compassion of Mother Teresa.
A tribute to a Texan who helped shape the state's political landscape.